I don't really think I need to put this here, but I guess I will anyways. This video will contain major spoilers from OMORI, so if you haven't played the game yourself, which I highly recommend, please stop watching now. With that, let us continue on to the video. I recently finished my playthrough of OMORI, and upon beating the game, I was surprised at just how many people disagreed with my interpretation of the game's ending. Even the achievement system itself seemed to classify the two major endings as either good or bad. For me, however, the quote-unquote bad ending was a lot more satisfying, especially after learning the truth behind Mari's death. Sunny, who was really the only character I never got too attached to, was revealed to have accidentally killed his sister by pushing her down the stairs. And that there is where the topic of this video lies. The accidentalism, is that a word? Of Sunny's murder, and the subsequent framing of the murder as a suicide by both Basil and Sunny leads to many moral questions the player must ask themselves. Can the two boys ever be forgiven for what they did? Does their young age absolve them of any blame? And the biggest question that appeared in my mind, what kind of punishment is suitable for someone who, even if accidentally, would kill such an important person in their life and then lie to avoid any consequences? All of this and more will be explored today in this video, OMORI and the moral grayness of manslaughter. Now, I'd like to start off by saying that I thoroughly enjoyed playing through this game. The depth of the characters, the tongue-in-cheek humor, and the imaginative world building was all a joy to experience, and I'm glad I got to see all of it firsthand during my blind playthrough. However, it felt as if I was always on the lookout for the darker elements of the game to reveal themselves. Even from the very beginning, getting to see through the game's cutesy facade for just a couple of seconds was much more enticing than playing through most of Headspace. Because of this, accompanied by the fact that the topic of this video revolves around the ending of the game, means that we'll be mostly talking about the back half of the game and focusing on the evil things Sunny did in his actual life. So, what did Sunny actually do? Well, as we said earlier, Sunny got into an argument with his older sister Mari while practicing for their music recital. In a fit of anger, Sunny pushed Mari down the stairs of their house, which resulted in Mari's death. Basil, who was over at the house at the time, suggested they disguise the murder by hanging Mari's body from a tree, and that's exactly what the boys did, and it worked perfectly. No one ever questioned them, and both Sunny and Basil were never even considered possible suspects in Mari's murder. Her death was ruled a suicide, and both boys were able to walk away from the whole ordeal while facing zero consequences, other than their degrading mental states after the fact. Now, Basil's suggestion to cover up the murder and assistance in doing so is enough for me to group him and Sunny together when considering if the two boys ever deserve forgiveness for what they did. I've heard many people make the claim that because the whole thing was an accident, and the boys probably panicked upon seeing that Mari wasn't waking up, are valid reasons for why they shouldn't be held completely responsible for what happened. While I definitely agree that these things played a sizable part in what happened that night, the result remains the same. Mari, who was a completely innocent individual, and from what we can gather from the game, was also an extremely kind and compassionate person, had her life taken away from her for absolutely no reason. And while the tragedy of her death is terrible enough, it sent ripple effects throughout all of faraway town and the people who lived there, especially those who were close to both Mari and the boys. The very people that Sunny and Basil claimed to care about, but hid the truth from while they were left to mourn the loss of someone they loved. I mentioned earlier how Sunny was one of the only characters I really didn't get too attached to, but Kel, Aubrey, and Hero all managed to find a way into my heart. Especially Hero. I really, really like Hero. And yet he ends up being the one, other than Sunny's parents, to be the most affected by Mari's death. He lost the love of his life before he was even old enough to go to college. Aubrey, who grew up in a neglectful home, lost her older sister figure. And Kel, who was probably the most attached from Mari, although definitely had a relationship with her too, had to watch his older brother deal with the grief of losing his girlfriend. These are things that Sunny and Basil can never truly make up for, no matter how hard they try. Not that they ever tried to anyways. The boys kept the entire thing a secret, while leaving their friends questioning why such a wonderful person like Mari would take her own life. It's also suggested that Mari's death is what led to the eventual disbandment of the friend group in the first place, which brought along its own negative effects on the members of the group, particularly Aubrey. By the time that we meet Sunny and Basil in the game, I think they've already passed the point of no return. Their actions on that terrible night, and their lack of empathy for those who they claim to love, are enough to conclude that they never deserve forgiveness for what they did. The next major thing I would like to touch on is how the young age of Sunny and Basil is factored into Mari's death. According to the wiki, both of the boys are around 16 years old, and were about 12 years old when Mari died. I think it's also worth noting that the social dynamics of the friend group allowed Sunny and Basil to act like younger kids as well. Hiro and Mari took on most of the responsibilities, and so the boys probably acted their age, if not younger. With this being the case, it's clear how terrified and confused Sunny and Basil would be after Mari wouldn't wake up. And even before that, it makes sense that Sunny could have trouble controlling his emotions due to him being a little kid. I think I made it quite clear up to this point that I don't think it was Sunny's intent to kill Mari when he pushed her. There are plenty of young children who throw tantrums when they get angry, although I will say 12 is a bit old to physically attack your sibling, especially over a small argument. But whether Sunny's anger was justified or not is beyond the point. The main point of contention is what the boys do after Sunny pushed his sister down the stairs. Going back to the wiki again, it notes that the boys were initially in denial and had carried Mari's body upstairs to lay her in bed. Upon realizing that she wasn't just unconscious, Basil is the one who suggested for them to frame her death as a suicide. This is where I think the argument over their age begins to fall apart. At this point, both Sunny and Basil know that Sunny had done something terrible. This is evident by the fact that they wanted to hide the truth behind Mari's murder because they knew there would be consequences to face. The gravity of the situation is not lost on the boys, and it's clear that they are fully aware of just how serious the whole situation is. Maybe there's a world where they lay Mari to bed, thinking that she'll wake up in the morning, and when she doesn't, everyone just assumes that she passed away in her sleep. This would have given a lot more credence to Sunny and Basil's naivety as younger kids, being a reasonable explanation for why they didn't tell someone, like Sunny's parents, about what happened. But even if this was the case, we have yet to talk about how the boys kept the entire thing a secret for 4 years. 4 goddamn years. They watched as their friends and loved ones mourned the loss of Mari, and yet they held their tongue just so they wouldn't have to face the repercussions of their actions. Any kid between the age of 12 to 16 should have the mental capacity to know that they need to own up to what they did. And though the game does end with Sunny finally confessing to the murder, I just feel like it's a bit too late for him to be saying something. And finally, we get to what is probably the most controversial topic in this video. What punishment do Sunny and Basil deserve for causing and lying about the death of Mari? As I said at the beginning of the video, the most fulfilling resolution of the story for me was the bad ending, where Sunny jumps off the balcony of his hospital room. Now, other than the fact that this ending has the most banging outro in the entire game, the fact that Sunny has to deal with some kind of repercussion is what made it feel just right to me. The good ending ends with the line, "I have something to tell you," alluding to the idea that Sunny comes clean about what him and Basil had been lying about, although we don't exactly know how Kel, Aubrey, and Hiro react to hearing such information. At this point, the boys have no route to redemption or atonement. They have let this terrible thing that they caused fester and drastically affect the lives of others in a way that they can't fix or make right. Because of this, I find the only real way to avenge Mari's death is through the death of the boy that killed her.
Sunny himself.
It only seems fair that this would be the case. Either that or Sunny needs to be put in prison for a very long time, both as punishment and for the fact that he is still actively a danger to other people. We literally see him stab another kid and have Kel have to take his knife away so he doesn't end up killing another person. As for Basil, I think keeping the secret for as long as he did also deserves a harsh punishment, although I do think that death is a bit too much for someone who didn't actually commit the murder. Maybe just lock him up for a couple years or something. Whatever the punishment is, I think I've made it clear that it's not right for the boys to just fess up to the murder and then go on with their lives on a journey of personal reflection and growth. Not everyone deserves a chance for reformation or redemption. You could make the argument that the emotional and mental turmoil that Sunny and Basil faced was punishment enough, but I would vehemently disagree. That kind of punishment does nothing to ease the minds of those who were affected by such a terrible and vile person. While it's not clear that the rest of the gang ever finds out the truth from Basil after Sunny jumps, I would like to imagine that at some point the truth comes out. The death of Sunny would bring much more closure to people if they were aware that he was the one that killed Mari, all the while acting none the wiser. I know, personally, seeing Sunny plummet to the ground made me feel extremely satisfied, especially after getting all the information about how he handled Mari's death. In conclusion, the differing ideas that people can have regarding the ending of OMORI is a testament to how impactful and impressive the game is. People who experience the exact same things I did while playing are able to interpret many aspects of the game entirely different than me. But whatever your thoughts are, I think we can all agree on one thing. The Oyasumi ending goes freaking hard!